Hello, I'm Six Stones, and in this video I'm going to be giving my thoughts on The Sandman on Netflix. And I know I am very late to making this video. Everybody's already made theirs already. Procrastination sucks, okay? It hurts, and I do it a lot. I know. I made art for you though. There you go. Pretty art to make up for it. Do other YouTubers do that? Do they make art for you? No, they don't. I put the extra effort in. Anyway, enough of me rambling. We're here to talk about The Sandman, the series based off the very highly rated comic book by Neil Gaiman, who also had a heavy hand on this series itself. People have been talking very highly of this series. You've probably seen it already. The Rotten Tomatoes score is very high. All the reviews rate it very highly, some calling it a masterpiece. Now, is The Sandman a masterpiece? Do I think it's a masterpiece? It's pretty damn close. Now, since I have given it a good amount of time to marinate with people, and I am going to talk spoilers, most likely. I'm not going to hold back when it comes to spoilers, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, click off the video. You gone? I'm giving you time. Leave. Why are you still here? Get out. Alright, I'm going to assume anybody that's still here is completely okay with spoilers. If you get spoiled, it's on you, don't blame me. Now, The Sandman is a very unique series, which I feel is the perfect term to describe this series, and I feel is one of the many reasons why people are rating it so highly, because it feels so different. Now, The Sandman doesn't do what typical series do, and it doesn't have one whole arc, one set story from beginning till end. Instead, it decides to do multiple little stories, which are connected with the characters throughout. So you have 1 through to 5, your own little story there. You got 6, which is its own little self-contained story, and then you got 7 through to 10. But I know some people separate it as 7, 8, and 9, and 10. I'm not too sure. I believe each of the stories is based on one of Neil Gaiman's books, which I have heard are very good. Everyone has said to me that Neil Gaiman's comics are very good, and I've also heard, apparently, that this series is very comic book accurate. So I have not read the books, and when it comes to reading the books ahead for future seasons, I'm probably going to refrain since it seems to be so comic book accurate, and it seems they handled it so well. So I don't really want to spoil myself for future content of the series. Yet it has a very unique structure in that sense, and that structure works very well for this series, and in the way that it's told. You'd think something like that could deter a few people, which it can. I can definitely see why somebody would not be fond of this structure and might not entertain them or might not be as gripping as they would like. But for me, I felt it worked. I really enjoyed this structure because it wasn't as separated as an episodic series, where I tend to find myself not liking episodic series a lot. But it has arcs that are long enough that I feel, yeah, I got a good beat of story, plus they're connected enough where they don't all feel just random and separated for no reason. They all kind of serve this one plot line of telling the story of the Sandman, and I feel like they all are there to serve the purpose of telling the story of the Sandman and his views on humanity and his views on himself and all this existential life questions as being a being such as the Endless would pose. And I really like that. Now, for those of you wondering who the hell is the Sandman, the Sandman is Morpheus, aka the King of Dreams, and the Nightmare Realm, and one of the Endless, who are a group of siblings that are personifications of things such as death, despair, and desire, and a few more that we don't get to see in the series, but we know exist, such as Destiny, and then there's another character that we do not know of, and apparently there's more that my friend has told me about that I also do not know of from the series. The Sandman is who we really get to connect with throughout these stories, and is really the thing that keeps the viewer very engaged throughout each one, and what, for me, makes it not feel like each story is disconnected, because I'm still connected to this character, and it's not like he just forgets what happens in the past story or something. It's like, this is a new story, completely disconnected. No. It follows through and it builds up in its emotions, and you see that in his views all the way to the end. And I feel a lot of that is due to just the amazing performance from the actor himself that plays Sandman and portrays Morpheus. They do an absolutely brilliant job, including their voice, which is absolutely mesmerizing, and you just can't get enough of it hearing this man speak. So he was definitely, for me, just the highlight of the whole series. So I feel the thing that really hooked me, and probably would hook a lot of people with this series, is that it has a very good, very strong start with the first episode. The first episode was something I was just not expecting from this series. This series does a really good job of focusing on things and letting those emotions marinate so you truly understand and truly question everything in the situation. For example, the first episode, the whole episode centers around the Sandman being captured by these cultists in like early times, right? It's not modern. And he's stuck in there for about 100 years. And you go through that entire time, the entire 100 years in this first episode. In most series, those 100 years would be a montage at the beginning of the episode. They recap you and you get into the meat of the series, right? Chuck you in. You don't need to see it. Here they make you see it. They make you see why he is bitter towards humanity, how he was treated, how the captures felt about keeping him, how the captures treated him, how it affected the humans around him. You feel all of it, you see all of it, and it really makes you feel a connection with this character straight from the jump. From the get-go, you have that from the first episode because you spent that time with him and you understand him going into the rest of the story and why he's bitter towards humanity and why he's cautious about them because of what they did to him. And I think that's really good. They do that again in the beginning story, the 1 to 5 episodes, with the 5th episode, where, yet again, there's this sequence that I would have expected in most series to just be about half the episode maybe, right? Or just like maybe the first 10-15 minutes, just a sequence that's there to just shock you and then you move on. Here, they focus on it, they marinate in it, they force you to stay in and they lock you in, and it's really disturbing what's happening in this 5th episode, where this guy has the ruby of the Sandman. The ruby basically makes your dreams come true, well, that's what they say. And this guy had a mother that was not very good, and this mother would lie to him a lot, and he had this dream that everybody would tell the truth, nobody would lie. But in this episode, they really showed the nasty side of what can happen if everybody just said what they wanted to say. Because you see in this diner where you have this small group of people, it's like a small group, and you're sitting there and you're seeing this ruby affect these people, saying what they truly want to say, no longer hiding secrets. There's a couple where one woman is controlling over her husband. Her husband wants to have a burger, the woman won't let her. It excels, it gets worse and worse. One woman, the nicest waiter you'd ever meet. She's so kind. But even the ruby is like, why are you so kind to people? Because you want people to like you. And it's heartbreaking, and it just keeps going on and on to the point where everybody in the end of the episode ends up just lashing out at each other, and everybody dies at the end. And it's horrific, it's disturbing, but it really hits you this truth about humanity that he's trying to portray, or that he believed, and that is the dream that he wants to come true. As far as he's concerned, it doesn't matter how bad it is, everyone's telling the truth. And I love that this series does this, because most series wouldn't do that. They wouldn't marinate on it, it'll just be a sequence and they move on. But I truly felt this situation because they focused the whole episode on it. So that story for me was a highlight, probably my second favourite story out of the lot. But my favourite was episode 6. So episode 6 is just one episode which has, I guess you could call it one story, or you could say it's 2 stories in one episode. They weave into each other, so I guess we can call it one. But you meet Death, who, actress that plays her, amazing job. Her name will be up, you will see her, fantastic, hope she gets more work. I was a little bit cautious of the casting at first because she doesn't look like Death in the comics, and Death has a very cool design in the comics. But it didn't matter because the performance was so good. Anyway, you follow Death, and Sandman is with Death, who Death is his sister. They get along very nicely. And you follow her as she does her job, what she does as her function, which is being Death, which she goes and she guides people to, I believe, the afterlife. I can't remember what they call it, but she guides them to the afterlife after death, and she speaks to the Sandman and basically says that their purpose is their function, that she used to hate her job. She used to think her job was the hardest, but she slowly began to understand that she needs the people that she takes up just as much as they need her. That most people, all they need at the end is a friendly face. And it's such a beautiful yet sad thing that you watch in this episode, but she's not sad about it. She's accepted it. She is fine with it. And you see her guiding these people in their last moments, and it's so tragic, but it shows to Morpheus, the Sandman, exactly why he exists, why he is the Sandman, that his purpose is his function. Without humans, he is not who he is. So it really opens it up, opens his eyes, and it's very fascinating. I was so captivated in the episode. Even though it's very sad and very depressing in the beginning, it goes into this other story which is actually pretty uplifting about him not understanding humans way back in like 1700s or something like that, way far back. And he's like, why would humans want to live forever at a time like this? He sees this one person in the bar, he's gassing himself up about how he'll never die. He's like, why would anybody want to live forever like this? Because obviously he's a god. Like, he looks at mortals and he's like, this is trash, right? But this one man wants to live forever. So death is like, how about we place a bet? They give this man eternal life, right? And every 100 years, they meet at that same spot in that pub, right? In that bar. And they recap. The man will recap what he's done in his life and everything and confirm, do you still want to go on for another 100 years? And they do that over and over and over again for every 100 years. And you see this friendship build between the two, even though the Sandman doesn't really want to acknowledge it as a friendship. There's a conflict there because he views the Sandman as a friend, but the Sandman's like, you're just a human, why would I be friends with you? And you see that conflict, and you see through the years how this man, despite everything that happens, you see him go at his lowest points through the 100 years, and he still wants to live. Still wants to live another 100 years. You see him at his highs, and of course he wants to live 100 years. There's even one point where they acknowledge the slave trade, and this man is like, oh yeah, they're being slaves and they do this and yada yada. And the Sandman's like, hey yo, not cool bro, not cool bro, nah, we ain't about that. And the man's like, you know what, got a good point, yada yada. I like that they took the time to acknowledge that, because he was a white man in a time where they were doing some crazy stuff. So I'm glad they acknowledged it. But you see that connection bond. It's just a really nice, heartwarming story that finally tells the positive side of being an immortal. Every other story is always negatives, like you don't want to be immortal, it's awful. You're gonna hate everybody, everyone's gonna go. But no, this one man loves it. And I've always wanted that story to be told, because I realistically, hell yeah, I'd want to be immortal. That'd be gas. Hell yeah, I'm taking that. So I thought that story was great. It's my favorite episode in the series. Yeah, it's another one of those episodes that just really made it stick for me. That this series was a banger of a series, and I really, really enjoyed it. Now, the final story, or the final two stories, but I'm going to say it's the final story because they're kind of just going to be together anyway. It's basically about this girl who is a vortex. She apparently can like merge the dream world and so forth, but she'll destroy everything, and the Sandman has to kill her or something. And it turns out to be a plan from Desire, and she has a friend who has lost her husband, and her husband has somehow gotten her pregnant in her dreams and is pregnant in the real world because she's a vortex and she's merging the rounds and everything, and it's really weird. And then you got the Corinthian going around doing serial killer stuff and has a league of serial killers that love him. I'm doing an awful job of explaining it. Basically, all I'm going to say about this last bit, because this video is getting a little long, is that the first part of the story, 7 and 8, probably the weakest part of the series for me. Probably the one part of the series that stops it from being an absolute masterpiece, as I felt it was a little bit slow. I wasn't as fond of it. It was still good, but it wasn't great, you know, like the rest of the stuff. I did still really like this character that we had, the Vortex girl, and I did like the stuff with the woman and her husband and the grief and the fact that they just wanted to live in the dream world forever. I thought that was really heartwarming and really heartfelt, but it was the weakest part for me. Didn't enjoy it as much as like episode 1 through 5 or episode 6. Now episodes 9 to 10, I also think are great. I really liked those two, which was like the conclusion of it all, where you have the Corinthian doing his thing, kidnapping the Vortex. Basically, oh, I haven't mentioned the Corinthian. Corinthian is great. I love the actor that plays the Corinthian. He is scary, he's charismatic, he's suave, he's kinda drippy. I love him, he's great. He's basically a nightmare that escapes with a few other nightmares who the Sandman has been going around trying to bring back because they're not supposed to be in the waking world, but our world basically. And he's basically has this whole thing where he cuts out the eyes of people because he doesn't have eyes, he has teeth for eyes, which is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But I guess that's your job when you're a damn nightmare, isn't it? So I guess the Sandman did his good job creating him. But yeah, the Corinthian has amassed, basically, he's gone to a convention of serial killers. They invited him because they're fans of his work that he's been doing for hundreds of years, because obviously he's a nightmare where he's been killing people and taking their eyes out. And they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Come to our show and talk for us at a serial killer convention. How the hell did they get that to fly and nobody notices that there's a bunch of serial killers just talking about serial killer stuff at a convention? Nobody thought to like run an NDA about that or something? Don't even think NDA is the right word. FDA, probably also not the right one. Whichever agency is supposed to do that. Nobody thought to go over there and be like, that's a bit sus. But yeah, you have all of that, and then you have the conclusion, the Sandman finally gets to Corinthian and all the other nightmares that brings them back, and Destiny's about to destroy everything. Not Destiny, sorry. The Dreamfield Vortex is about to destroy everything, and the Sandman manages to stop it. He's like about to kill her, but then the mother, the great-grandmother, who was in like sleep paralysis from ages, yada yada yada, a bunch of other stuff, can't get into it. But she's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take it, and I'll go, because I've lived my life, so that she can live hers, and basically that happens, and they solve everything. And it's a very nice story. It's very had me on the edge. I was very concerned for a lot of the characters and everything, and it's a very nice, heartwarming conclusion about the Sandman's function, about how he is in the wrong for a lot of things, how the nightmares that he finds, one nightmare that he sends into the darkness and vanishes, that nightmare's like, I just don't want to be a nightmare anymore, right? It's not that I hate you or anything, I just don't want to be a nightmare anymore. I wanted to help people, and he's like, that's not your job, you're designed to be a nightmare, I am what I say you are. And then by the end of the episode, he realizes that that's just messed up. I've got to change the way I do things, because the way I do things is what led to people like the Corinthian, what led to people like the other one that I forgot the name of. Yeah, basically, and it's a really interesting story, and the whole story poses a whole bunch of interesting questions throughout the whole series of just what it means to be human and so forth. And it's just constantly intriguing. Whenever I felt like it might get boring, okay, it's kind of slow, and it'll be like, boom, another interesting thing will come up. It's like, oh, that's an interesting question, or oh, that's a really exciting sequence, or the visuals would do something, or they'll hit me with a gut punch of emotion, or something like that. They just don't allow you to get bored. Whenever you think you are, they don't allow you. And I love when series do that. That's what really makes a series stick with you, and the Sandman does that perfectly. Now, I just want to quickly go through the characters, highlight characters. The Sandman, already explained, top-notch job. Death, already said, top-notch job. Desire, another highlight, absolutely brilliant, great performance, loved it. Enticing, I know a lot of people describe the performance as delicious, which I think is a good way to describe it, to be honest, like perfect. Lucifer is in this series, and there's an amazing sequence between Lucifer and the Sandman where they have this battle of words or transformation, where they'll say something and they'll kind of personify it, and then you have to say something that can kill said thing, and the person in the real world, they take the damage. So say in the word battle, Lucifer said, I am a wolf, hunting, biting, or whatever. But then the Sandman would counter with, I am a hunter, forever hunting, wolf stabbing. And then Lucifer would take the damage of a wolf being stabbed. And then that would excel and excel and excel, and basically you have to try outwit each other. And then there's this amazing thing about she's the anti-life, the end of all things. Then Sandman says, I am hope, and that just beats Lucifer and everything. But amazing sequence, and I thought Lucifer was so great in that sequence. And there's a stinger at the end hinting towards the season 2 with Lucifer, which is very exciting, and I desperately hope this series gets to season 2. Now, there's also the character I spoke about with the Ruby in episode 5, I thought was great. The Immortal in episode 6 was fantastic. Dream Vortex was good. Probably not like a highlight, but she was good. She did her job. And Matthew the Crow, goated, respect. Yeah, those are just a bunch of characters that I thought really stuck with me, definitely remembered. Oh, and the Corinthian. How do I forget the Corinthian? The Corinthian's great. Also, played by the actor that played the villain dude in The Ravagers in Logan. Instantly recognized that voice. He's so cool. Anyway, so that is my review for The Sandman. My very chaotic thoughts about The Sandman. I'm so sorry. Overall, I think The Sandman is a fantastic series. It's captivating, it's intriguing, it poses a lot of great questions, it gets your mind thinking. It's not generic in the slightest, it's unique, and I would give it, if I was to give it a rating that's easier for you to understand, probably a 9 out of 10, and therefore I would give it 5.5 Infinity Stones out of 6. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the art, follow me on my other platforms such as Instagram and Twitter, and I will see you in another video. Have a very balanced day.